Graziano, tell our Brian Clark, as he sits here taking not so subtle shots at you this morning.
I can take it.
What you can see, they wake up on a Friday morning. Sean Payton goes in and meets with the billionaires who own his team and pay his salary. What might he be saying today?
Look, I think there's a sense around the league, and has been for the past week or so, that the Broncos are kind of open for business in terms of the trade deadline, which, as Mike T points out, 18 days away. So there are some veterans with some contracts that they could get out of and get picks back in return. Some useful guys, right? Like a team might want to trade for Justin Simmons. A team might want to trade for Garrett Bowles. Everybody's always looking for offensive line help. If you're Sean Payton and you're saying, look, I just got here, here's what I inherited, it's not as good as I thought it was, I think the 1-5 start gives him some cover to move on from some guys that he might not want there. We've seen it with Randy Gregory. We're seeing it with Frank Clark, and I think we're going to continue to see it. I don't think you can move Russell Wilson's contract, but if it gets to this point, you could sit him down and look at Jarrett Stidham and then plan for your offseason and what you're going to do at the position. I think the Broncos have arrived at that point in their season, and I don't think Sean Payton's going to be shy about going there.
But so we've got that, okay? So that's that part of it. Go ahead, RC, jump in on that one. Pick it up there. Go.
No, I'm saying, but like the thing with Russell Wilson is so complex, though. When you give a quarterback that much money and you give up so much to get him, and then you actually trade for a coach and you give him $85 million, you don't just get to move on from those two players. It was a reason Sean Payton was brought in, and I know they say that he's not tied to Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson isn't the quarterback that he brought with him, but you don't get to get rid of Russell Wilson. You don't get to bench him in 6 games. They're going to have to bottom all the way out. And maybe the Waltons don't want it. Maybe Walmart doesn't want it. Maybe if Walmart has more aisles open than the one aisle you got self-checkout on, maybe they can all get better. But what we're seeing right now from the Denver Broncos doesn't mean that Russell Wilson won't be the quarterback going forward in the future this season. Maybe it changes next season. Maybe at the end of the year, but not right now.
RC, I disagree, and here's why. When I got the job as Sean Payton, I'm saying I'm building a championship. We're going to try to make it work with Russell Wilson, but if it doesn't, I am beholden to nobody. I made Drew Brees a Hall of Famer, and I know what works, and when he doesn't play well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. If I bench Russell Wilson, they all have to fall in line.
Go ahead, RC. So you're saying that Drew Brees made Drew Brees a Hall of Famer? What are you saying?
Already good.
Absolutely. Drew Brees was what he was going to be. The reason that Drew Brees is out of San Diego is because they got a chance to draft Phillip Rivers. The reason he's not in Miami is because he walked off the field with his arm stuck in the air like a scarecrow. Drew Brees was going to be Drew Brees. Was Sean Payton a part of that? Absolutely. But Drew Brees was a Hall of Famer based on Drew Brees' own merits. The reason that Sean Payton gets so many opportunities to renege, gets so many opportunities to reinvent himself, get so many opportunities to fail, say stupid things, and then get beat by coaches who he said can't coach or couldn't coach themselves out of a wet paper bag is because of Drew Brees. We have to stop saying Drew Brees was Drew Brees because of Sean Payton and maybe start saying Sean Payton was Sean Payton because of Drew Brees.
Okay, I'm so glad you just said that, because I want to, again, for those who didn't see this last night, there's a moment that if this game had been closer, would have been all we talked about today and for a lot longer than that. Let me show you how the first half ends, okay? Denver has the ball. They're down 10-0. This is a 3rd down late in the half. Russell Wilson is sacked by Chris Jones. There's 22 seconds left. Sean Payton calls timeout. The Broncos call timeout. And the way the sequence unfolds, Kansas City winds up turning it into a 60-yard field goal. You ask Sean Payton, why did you call timeout? Here's his explanation.
That's a boneheaded mistake by me. They were calling one as well, and I'm off a down, but that was stupid.
I'm off a down. He was wrong about what down it was.
I agree. What's really scary to me is that nobody on his coaching staff was comfortable to say, like, don't call timeout. We just gave them 3 points. And that is alarming. If I was the GM of the owner of the Broncos, of all the things we talked about, the fact that nobody has the ability to tap you on the shoulder in a consequential moment and say, hey, we're wrong here, coach, is a big concern.
That was the thing with Nathaniel Hackett, was game management, right? And so, like, I'm not saying it's been a chronic thing with Sean Payton this year, but this is a high-profile mistake in an area that was supposed to not be a problem this year. We didn't know if Russell Wilson was going to be able to play. We didn't know how, but we thought it would be better organized. And obviously, while it probably has big picture, you can't make that mistake.
RC, jump in here.
I don't know, man. I don't know how close Mike T is to Sean Payton, but golly, I love the fact that if Mike T is my friend, he's going to be loyal to the end. That's Sean Payton's fault. It's not about what coaches on his staff run to him and tell him don't take a timeout. When a coach is traded for, you gave up something to get this coach from the New Orleans Saints. You gave him $85 million. He ain't supposed to need no staff to tell him how to manage a game. That's the one thing that's supposed to be done, and it's supposed to be done to almost a perfect level every single week. Sean Payton, I do like this. He accepted that he was wrong, but he can't be wrong in that situation. Your team isn't good enough to be wrong in that situation. You have to make the right calls to put your team in the best position. And a boneheaded mistake by a veteran coach, by a coach that's won a Super Bowl, by a coach that's made Drew Brees, can't happen. You can't be critical of the entire world, including people that aren't in your locker room, and make quote-unquote boneheaded mistakes. It's too late in the game for that for him.
Bartholomew, final word.
I mean, it's a level of arrogance when you watch Sean Payton, and we've listened to some of the things that he said. He's got to accept and be more humble, because the football guys will humble you. And, they have to make some decisions. Now, he's going to be able to throw it on, hey, Van Joseph didn't do this, or my defense, and he's going to try and build everybody up. But I don't know if he can fix this in 5 years, especially when you fact that you have Herbert and you have Mahomes in that division. So, you're paying a lot for a little right now.
Hey, my favorite quarterback when I was growing up wasn't a professional quarterback. His name was Kendrick Sam. He was the quarterback of the 13 and 14-year-old boys at Pard Playground. And they played Gretna one night. It was a huge game. And that was Kendrick Sam's stat line. That was the day he was no longer my favorite quarterback, which is probably the same for the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson. When you go out and you're playing against a Patrick Mahomes, and you've been the player throughout your career that Russell Wilson has, that is unacceptable. You have to find a way to do more. And right now, I actually feel bad for Russ, because I think he's trying. I think he's working. I know he wants to be great, and he just no longer is. Sometimes when it's gone, it is gone. There is no magic dust. There is no pixie dust. There is no Peter Pan, bring me back to being a kid again in Neverland, that will get Russell Wilson back to who he used to be. So now they have to take the next step and figure out what he can do now. And for some reason, he and Sean Payton can't get on the same page.
We're supposed to go to another feature here, but Cindy, if you don't mind, just come out to the group, because I just want to stay on this for just a minute, because we've talked a lot about Russell Wilson and how we all believe Sean Payton is either at or near the point where he is going to want to move on from Russell. And clearly, whether we think it's the right thing or not, Sean Payton has total control of that organization based upon the commitment that's been made to him. What will that mean for Russell Wilson? This is a guy who's 2 years removed from being could he be one of the best quarterbacks in the league? What will happen to him?
No, life comes at you fast. One minute you're being compared to Drew Brees, the next minute you're being compared to Kendrick Sam. That's pretty rough. So look, I think look, if they trade him in the offseason, there's always a team that gets to its plan C, right, at quarterback, right? Like that doesn't draft high enough to get the guy of their dreams. I don't know. They may have to pay some of the money to move him, but they could also just go ahead and cut him post-June 1st cut, and then maybe somebody takes a
Mike T, you're a general manager. Yep. Is he a starting quarterback on an NFL roster next season week opener?
No, and here's why. To Graz's point, there's so many in the draft next year. Why would I pay that money if I'm, fill in the blank, the Jets, the Bears, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the whomevers? Go get Michael Penix or Bo Nix and start fresh.
Okay, but there are only so many of them. I get it. So there's May and there's Williams and there's Penix. Okay, so let's even say there's 5 that are going to go in the first round. There are more than 5 teams that are going to need a quarterback. Will Russell Wilson be a starting quarterback in the National Football League week 1 of next year?
No, because I think he remains on the Broncos, but they use one of their draft picks for a young quarterback, and they've used him as a bridge quarterback. At this point, his reputation also precedes him as well. You heard what Marshawn Lynch said about him. You know what happened last year in that locker room. You know what he did with the Legion of Boom. So why would you want to bring that show? You talk about the show that used to come with certain quarterbacks with a lot of baggage. That's a lot of baggage to put inside of a young team, and him influencing everybody with Russ Inc.
You would think that if he has a lousy year again and gets cut, that maybe he'd be humbled a little bit going to his next stop.
I mean, he always seems like he has that humble pride, but he's 34 years old, and he's a guy that when I look at the route concepts, when you look at the highlights, these are junior high concepts. They're cutting the field. They're giving them sail routes. They're making it easy for him. Max protect, you don't pay that type of money for that type of production.
Greedy, if we were running a team, that's why we're seeing Gardner Minshew, the Andy Daltons, the Blaine Gabberts. They play for a long time. They're very comfortable in that role. I don't see Russell Wilson wanting to be in that role. So if we're drafting Caleb Williams or Drake May, Russell Wilson isn't ideal for that situation.
So you're saying that Kendrick Sam has a better chance of being a starter somewhere next year?
By the way, if he's still on their roster next March, then $37 million of 2025 salary becomes guaranteed. That's a lot to carry for a bridge quarterback.
All right.
Well, sometimes you just got to eat it, man. And say, hey, Walmart got more money than.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
They got plenty of money. All right, we'll see what ones. I just wanted to dive back into that because you made me think of it, RC, when you were